Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Golladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Welcome to the Detroit Koolaid. It's Friday, and this is Griff coming at you today. Once again, now Derek had his Wednesday show, did it with Logan Lamorandier. Logan dropped some knowledge and some opinions on the Detroit Lions. Derek was there asking him some poignant questions and having his quips like he usually does. Hope you guys all enjoyed that show, but you just get me today. As it is Friday, of course, I'm going to start off with a weather report like usual, considering what 3/4 of the United States was gripped by a winter weather storm this week. Everybody's probably still inside, either shoveling out or just not wanting to go outside and play in the snow. But this weekend it is supposed to be a little warmer here in Michigan. I mean, by a little warmer, I mean low to mid-20s as opposed to the single digits that we have seen earlier this week. So, I mean, yeah, there's no football happening, so feel free. You probably got some other things you guys want to do. Catch up on some, DVRs or, watch something on Netflix, do some stuff with the kids. Go outside, go sledding. It's actually a nice weekend to go sledding. That's what I'll be doing with my daughters. But anyways, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. So first thing I want to touch base on was Kenny Golladay. They were thinking about using the franchise tag on him. That was one thing that was mentioned that would be a possibility with him. Now, as always, the franchise tag, it pays you in the top amount at your position. I know I said before the season even started that Kenny Golladay would be looking for something roughly $17 million north per year. And as on a previous show, I mentioned it, and Derek said it could have been old information that he turned down a $16 million a year offer. So I'm not quite for sure what Kenny's looking for. There was always these rumors of him going to another team as well, and the one that was out there was the New York Giants. I do remember that one. But the franchise tag, I remember when it first came out, players were all for it because it guaranteed them a spot on the team and guaranteed them money. And now it seems like players don't like that anymore. They don't like having the franchise tag. It really limits their options. I know some of them hold out when they're franchise tagged. I'm not sure if Kenny would do that or even if they would franchise him. Having the Lions only having Quintez Cephas as their only viable wide receiver right now, it's pretty thin there. So I could see why they would look to do that. I think it would be beneficial for the team to re-sign Kenny Golladay. I know he was injured most of last year. Part of that could have been just by the season the Lions were having, and maybe, who knows, maybe he didn't like Matt Patricia. Seems like a lot of players didn't like him, and they were happy to see him go. But I don't know if Kenny Golladay wants to be here. Like I mentioned on a prior episode, that after he heard Dan Campbell's press conference, he said he laughed out loud. So maybe he's not taking the coach seriously. That would make it pretty difficult for him to, listen to him, pay attention to him. My thoughts on it: if they do franchise tag him, I'm all for it. It's 1 year, and they can see what he can do. If they like him, maybe they do break the bank for him. Maybe he does bounce back and have the year like he did in 2019, where he just was all out for the Lions, and we were all so impressed by him, and he was that wide receiver that we were looking for after Calvin Johnson. So it's a 1 year deal. I don't know. I don't know if Kenny will sign or not. If he wants to go somewhere else, good luck to you. I don't have an issue with it. If the Lions do franchise him, there's always that possibility they franchise him, then they do the sign and trade. Naturally, with the sign and trade, whoever he goes to, they're going to want to work out a long-term deal before the trade is consummated, simply because you're not going to want to pick up a guy for 1 year on a franchise tag. I'm out. So they're going to look to they would also look to extend him as well. So there's still many options here for the Lions with Kenny Golladay, what they want to do, and the franchise tag is out there for him. If he signs, cool. If not, no big deal. I guess the Lions have to find somebody else. It's a pretty deep draft for wide receivers. I'm sure Derek has a plethora of wide receivers out there, through the first round all the way through the end of the draft that he feels could fit the Lions. And I'm sure he'll bring that information as well. There's obviously some mock drafts out there, and Jalen Waddle, some people have taken them. And Devontae Smith's out there, Jamar Chase, all first-round picks at number 7. Me personally, they're all good. They all have a certain skill set they're looking for. They're all burners. Lions haven't had a burner on the field in a while. So, but once again, it's a deep draft. I said in a prior show with Derek, what would you take? I'm like defense. That's really what this team needs. It's a deep draft for wide receivers. You can get one later, and maybe sign somebody as a free agent, something like that. So I don't think the Lions are all die hard. I'll have to go all in on Kenny Golladay. If they do franchise him, cool. Next thing I want to talk about here really quick is I saw this article. It was possible free agents, cheap free agents that the Lions may look to bring in. And the last one was a surprise one. It said Jared Davis, bring Jared Davis back. And I saw that and I was just like, why? Why bring him back? Once again, why? And people are, I know, like I said, people are like, well, they didn't use him right. You didn't fit the scheme. They got to do something else with him. And yeah, I guess that's a possibility. But I think at this point as Lions fans, we kind of know what Jared Davis can do. What he has. I don't see this guy all of a sudden taking a big leap forward and he's becoming some, maybe a possible Pro Bowler, something like that. I don't see that out of Jared Davis. He just doesn't seem, he's very Ernie Sims to me. If anybody remembers Ernie Sims, he was very point and shoot. He was fast and, he could tackle, somewhat, but Ernie Sims also had a lot of drawbacks that made him not as effective. Even when he moved on too. They ended up, moving on from him. And he went to the Eagles. And he wasn't very good from Philadelphia. And I just think Jared Davis, we know what he can do. So if you want to bring him back, I think it's just almost kind of like a waste. Or like you're kind of settling, I guess. Why would you? I don't know. I was, after reading this, I was trying to rack my brain of players that have been here. And the Lions let them go. I'm not talking after, they signed, the rookie deal and then signed another contract and left late in their career. I'm talking like early on. And everyone's going to point to Kyle Van Noy, and I get it. I understand Kyle Van Noy. We've all heard the story about one of the assistant coaches looked at him at one point in his rookie training camp, said, "We don't know what to do with you." And that's just one. That's one, poor coaching. Two, even the general manager, if you don't know how to use the guy or what you're going to do with him or how he even fits your team, why draft him? And Kyle Van Noy went to New England, had a very, was very solid there. Was good, won a Super Bowl ring there. Was signed with Miami last year. He was decent for Miami last year. But there's been so many other guys that the Lions have gotten rid of when they were young like that. And like I said, I really can't think of anybody. And somebody's going to point to me and say, well, look at Eric Ebron. Look what he did in Indianapolis. He went to the Pro Bowl the next year, and he was great. They threw him the ball, and he caught everything. I just think Eric Ebron was very motivated right there. There's a difference between being motivated and being good. I think he just really wanted to show the Lions up that they made a mistake. You should have kept me. But then the next year when he was in Indianapolis, it started to come back out again. No, Eric Ebron kind of went back to himself. Water found its level with Eric Ebron. He was what he was. He was here in Detroit. He dropped the ball a lot. Wasn't that great. And obviously Indianapolis was more than happy to kick him to the curb as well. And then he went to Pittsburgh, and, Eric Ebron's out there doing some tweets about, going to Pittsburgh and blah, 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 and, having some success there. But still, you had a lot of drops there as well. And you're completely average, dude, at best. So were the Lions sad to lose him? No. Was I sad to see him go? No. So it's happened, for even in the recent history of guys. I remember when there was the talk after, was it Roy Williams and Kevin Jones? There was a talk like they were going to let those guys go before they're under the contract as well. And it kind of punched me in the stomach And I was just like, wow, man, that's a couple high draft picks. And gosh, they could be good if they did this and did that. And they just used them right. And then after a little bit, I kind of took a step back. And I was just like, why? They haven't really done anything here anyways. I mean, Roy Williams was always Mr. Gator Arm if he was going to get hit. If you watch his tapes, I mean, yeah, he had a couple nice catches, but the guy didn't like to get hit at all. Kevin Jones has always looked to run to the outside like he did in college. He was fast, but he could often get to the outside. The guy wasn't running up the middle at all. If he was always bouncing it to the outside, trying to get to the outside. And he was getting tackled, for like a couple-yard gain. That guy never busted off any runs at all. I mean, Javid Best, we all know him. We were all happy when they drafted him, but the whole thing with him was this concussion issue that he had out at Cal, and that's what peaked its head here. So there was somebody else at the Lions let go pretty young. Kevin Smith. I mean, we joke about Kevin Smith. He was one of those guys. He would just, he had a lot of carries at Central Florida. And he was a workhorse down here, but when he got to the pros, he just wasn't fast hitting the hole. He seemed to get tackled relatively easy. He couldn't break a whole lot of tackles. And there was another guy the Lions let go. It's just one of those things where Jared Davis, we're just going to hang on to him because he may fit, he may do something. I just don't see it. Once again, I could possibly totally be wrong, and I would be completely fine with that. I mean, okay, eat some crow, but I don't think so. I think it's my lazy boy, as Derek says, lazy boy scouting. It doesn't take a whole lot to see that Jared Davis ain't that great. He's not. I mean, the guy can kick rocks. The guy can't cover a coffee table. And, he's a total point-and-shoot player. It's just like, Jared Davis, you run here, he'll go do it, and he'll be really good at it. But if you ask that guy to read and react at anything, he's not good at that. He's Ernie Sims. That's what he is. So, see you later, Ernie. See you later, Ernie Sims / Jared Davis. You guys are one and the same. Go somewhere else. You might have a little bit of luck. But like I said, it seems at this point, the Lions have a little bit of a history of that. If they let him go, they might have a little modicum of success somewhere else, but it doesn't happen very often. It's usually just a bad draft pick. So, as Jared Davis, I don't want him back at all. Another one that I saw an article recently as well that Jeff Okudah was ranked as the worst first-round draft pick last year. And, of course, it caught my eye, and of course I'm gonna read it. And as I read it, it totally made sense based on where he was drafted, how he played, which was pretty bad. And we will admit that he had a very, very bad rookie year and struggled a lot. And everybody will mention, well, learning, to play quarterback in the NFL, it's a hard transition from college, and maybe he didn't fit in the system exactly what Matt Pat wanted to use him as what he played at Ohio State. Ohio State, he was more of a press man right at the line. Matt Patricia, they said they liked to play it, but it always seemed like Okudah was always backed up a couple steps. Maybe because we know Okudah's not the fastest guy. He's not Tease Tabor slow, but he wasn't the fastest guy either. So maybe they're more worried about him getting beat off the line and just getting blown by, and the quarterback's just going to do an easy pitch and catch to a guy just running down the sideline. Maybe that's why. But I still think Jeff Okudah is strong enough to knock a wide receiver off his route early on. So you got to get him up there. You got to do almost like a bump and run of press coverage with him, and that's what I don't think Matt Pat did with him. So I totally saw the article's point of view, but I don't think he's the worst player in the first round. I mean, to say his production based on where he was drafted, yes, it was pretty poor. So yes, but I highly doubt he's the worst first round pick, the worst player, I guess, in the first round. I mean, he was drafted, third for a reason. We all assumed he was good. Some people think it's where I think taking a tight end early on is bad. Some people find taking a cornerback really high is bad as well. They don't like it. It's just, once again, it's just opinion. And you're entitled to your opinion. If you think it's a luxury pick, or if you think you can get cornerbacks a little later, or cornerbacks in the first round are not an odd thing. It happens a lot. Just taking one that high, people don't like it. But I mean, I didn't mind it. I still think he's going to be good. So it's just one of those things where I think that's all it's going to have to do is motivate him, and he's going to become better for it. And he just sees that. He sees that, and it's just going to motivate him to be the better player. to help out the Lions down the long run. Maybe he needs that little pat on the back from the new coaching regime. Aaron Glenn's going to help him out. He knows the position. He played in the NFL for years. So it can only help him get better. And I still think the same can be said for AO as well. Having Aaron Glenn as a defense coordinator, knowing the position, it could help those two young guys really step up. And I'm not expecting Desmond Trufant to be around. I mean, that guy was a big disappointment. I'm looking for him to be a cap casualty, and maybe the Lions can get some money saved by getting rid of him. But Lions got young cornerbacks, Okuda and Awarie, and Aaron Glenn's going to help him out. So, Jeff Okuda, take that article for what it's worth. Use it as motivation. Use it as, billboard material, whatever you want to call it. But I can see you having a definite bounce back year in year 2 here with the Lions. Let's do this here really quick before I get into my next subject. Let's take a pause for the cause. Pay some bills here. You'll hear a couple ads. Once again, thanks for supporting our sponsors, Anchor. And you'll hear an ad for Derek's Believe in Lions podcast with Benny Blades. It's a good show. Benny's got some good stories there. And him and Derek, Benny Blades and Derek, they do have their little banters back and forth and have their disagreements and agreements. It's a good show. You should give it a listen. Once again, you can find that at any place that has does podcasts as well. So I will be right back.
What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Derek Oakrey of the Detroit Koolaid Cast, and this is normally where I tell you about some of our great sponsors. But today, I want to tell you about my other Lions podcast. It's called Believe in Lions, and that's spelled BLEAV on the Believe Podcasting Network with both myself and Lions legendary safety Benny Blades. Yeah, you know who he is, the hard-hitting safety Benny Blades. Played for the Lions. He also played for the you know what it is, the University of Miami, those Miami Hurricanes. He mentions it multiple times the show. Benny loves to talk about his Hurricanes, his Lions, and I love to play this soundbite on the show. We have a ton of fun on that show. We laugh, we joke, we talk Lions. Like I said, he brings up the Hurricanes. I talk about my Michigan Wolverines. It's a really fun show. Benny loves the Lions. He tells great stories from his playing days, as well as we're just rooting on this team. We BLEAV in the Lions. So please go ahead, find it on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that subscribe button and check it out. Share it with a friend. We really appreciate it. So check out Believe. BLEAV in Lions with myself and Benny Blades. Thank you guys so much.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Detroit Koolaid. Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Appreciate it. Once again, find us, tell your friends, hit subscribe, listen to us, and once again, leave a nice feedback for us. It can only help us out. And if we love hearing from you guys. People hit us up on Twitter at at Derek Oaker or at GrifkaDKC. Or feel free to call in at the call or text at 989-272-3484. That's 989-272. Kevin Smith, Herman Moore. Give us a call. Give us a text, actually. We'd like to know your opinion on some stuff. So, or how you even feel about the upcoming Lions. How you feel about Dan Campbell as a coach. That would be nice to hear as well. So, my next topic, what I really want to touch base on, is now that Jared Goff is on the Lions. I know at one point last year, prior to the season, I did a show of ranking positions in the division. And it once again made me start to think of where, with Matt Stafford gone, I had him right behind Aaron Rodgers. But where's Jared Goff fit in this division? It seems like there's going to still be a lot of turnover. It seems like every team, from what I've heard in this division, could have a new starting quarterback going into next year. There's rumors seen about Carson Wentz getting traded to the Chicago Bears. Was it the 49ers were talking about trading for Kirk Cousins? Aaron Rodgers looking to move on from Green Bay so Green Bay could, see what Jordan Love could do. So it's hard to say exactly where Jared Goff fits in based on not quite knowing who's going to be here for every other team in the division. And if we started with at the beginning of next year with the exact same starters that we have now, that we know of. Talking Mitch in Chicago, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. If I was to break it down, obviously Aaron Rodgers is head and shoulders better than any other quarterback in this division. Hands down, not even close. I mean, I think he gets some calls. I think he's smug. I think he's a crybaby. But let's face it. I mean, once again, guy's good. Can't stunt. He is. Now, Jared Goff, I mean, a lot of people are going to point to. I know there's points where Derek points at Kirk Cousins' stats, like, well, look what he's done the last few years. Look what he's done. But I still think Kirk Cousins is a completely average quarterback. He's just, I don't know. It seems like he's had some talent in Minnesota, and he does stuff with it, but then he's had some talent in Minnesota, and he hasn't done anything with it. When he was in Washington, he didn't have the greatest supporting cast, but he'd always put up kind of decent years with Washington. I just think he's an average quarterback. Do I think he's better than Jared Goff? I mean, if you're going to look at people are comparing, was it Matt Stafford's numbers to Jared Goff's numbers and saying how similar there are, I mean, if that's the case, I'm going to say, well, no, because I always thought Stafford was better than Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, if you're going to compare Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, I'm going to say Jared Goff's better than Kirk Cousins. Now, people are going to be like, well, you can't do that just based on some stats or two different divisions. But if that's the case, I think everybody's going to agree that for that time, the NFC West had better defenses that Jared Goff faced than what Matt Stafford faced here in this division. I always thought Green Bay's defense was a little overrated, which, I mean, I still think Minnesota's or Green Bay's defense gets some calls. I mean, based on them being Green Bay. I mean, the Monday night game 2 years ago, we were there, saw a couple of plays on defense that the Green Bay defense did. I still think there's other times where they're allowed to do a little more grabbing and stuff like that, where they get away with it. But, I mean, okay. I mean, the Smith boys on that defense, yeah, they're good for that defense, and I guess it fits their defense. But I think they're completely, I think they're okay. I don't think they're great. If you disagree with me, feel free. Hit me up on Twitter at GriffKidDKC or call in on the line. But Green Bay's Green Bay. I mean, I think we all saw them later in the playoffs, how much their defense got exposed about how completely average it was. And that's the case. Minnesota's defense really took a step back the last couple of years. They used to be the creme de la creme in this division. I really liked Minnesota's defense, all the players on there. So, but the last couple of years, like, Zimmer just hasn't had the defense that he has. And Chicago's defense really up and down. A couple of years ago, really good. Last year, a little bit average. Not that great. But then the same could be said if you look at what Jared Goff took on out in the NFC West. Seattle's defense used to be the creme de la creme. Last couple of years, they haven't been that great. I mean, I still think they got that moniker. People think, they're great no matter what because they're Seattle, and everybody remembers the Legion of Boom out there and all the players they used to have, but go check the numbers. The last couple of years, they've been a little below average. San Francisco's defense, when Jared Goff first came out there, was only okay. But then Saleh really turned it around, and that defense has probably been the best defense that he's had to face out there the last few years. That's, once again, my opinion. You could feel different. And I think Arizona's defense, they have a good defense. I mean, they got some, fast players. They're talented. They have a couple holes here and there, but mostly that defense flies around. They're attacking all the time. They're always looking to put pressure on a quarterback, and everybody knows the best way to get a young quarterback, out of his game is to throw pressure at him, and that's what Arizona does. Those guys, they're flying around the field, but there's just some holes there where that the defense that they get exposed at points, and that's why Arizona's not out there, running away with the division. I mean that their offense, at points has coming along too, but still their defense has held a lot of times that Arizona team in games because of that defense. So to say like Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, you can't compare them because they're in two different divisions. I still think that kind of the talent levels they were facing were very similar. So to say that their numbers, to compare their numbers, to say apples to oranges, two different divisions, blah, 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 the talent, I would say it's apples to apples on that, based on what they're doing. So with that being said, am I going to put Jared Goff above Kirk Cousins? Of course I'm going to put, Jared Goff above Kirk Cousins. Everybody knows how I think about Kirk Cousins. It's almost how Derek feels about Ryan Tannehill. That he's terrible, that he sucks, he's not great. Even though Ryan Tannehill's thrown up, put the team in the, on his back a couple times and put him in the playoffs, and it was like, well, it's Derrick Henry. Well, you're right, Derrick Henry's run, but still, you have to have a quarterback to be able to chuck the ball around, and that's what Ryan Tannehill does. So, I don't think Ryan Tannehill's that great, but if you're gonna throw the wins and losses, because that gets thrown at me sometimes. Well, look, he's got the wins. Okay, well, if that's the case, Jared Goff's got the win. Jared Goff's been to Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, he struggled in it against New England's defense, and I know not St. Louis. I know the Los Angeles Rams had a great defense at that time, and even recently their defense has been pretty decent. It's been good. So he's just last year Goff. I mean, I think some of it was they kind of stopped doing what Goff I think kind of performs a little better at. I think you got to move him out of the pocket a little more. I don't think you can just put him back in there. The Rams' offensive line, it's been okay to decent. I would say it's very similar to Detroit's offensive line. Maybe Detroit's is a little better, younger, up and coming at this point, where a couple years ago probably I would have to say Los Angeles had a better offensive line for Jared Goff to run behind and play behind as opposed to Matt Stafford. And even at this point, you could compare the running game, which obviously takes pressure off the quarterback to make a lot of plays if you have a running game. It seems like Los Angeles has always had a pretty decent running game with that too. So, and obviously Detroit's is up and coming. They got Swift, and they just need to find another back there to help him out. Carrion's back there, but nobody's putting a lot of stock in him. So, is Jared Goff better than Kirk Cousins? Of course. And then everybody knows that listens to the show knows how I feel about Mitch. I mean, it seems like that guy, they just don't want him around. But he shows up against the Lions, but I think that has more to do with Matt Patricia and his awesome scheme and whatever than him, Mitch being any good, because he pretty much blows against any other team. But Mitch, I don't care who they get. They can go get Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz, I still believe, can still be a decent quarterback, but he's not there. So I'm comparing Jared Goff against Mitch, and far and away, Jared Goff's better than Mitch. And people can say, oh, Mitch is coming along. He's making plays. He's doing that. But once again, he's another one of those quarterbacks where water finds its level. He is what he is. And, gosh, the Bears giving up what they did to trade up for that, to get that guy. Congratulations. That's just right there. You're getting a golf clap for that, because that was just one of the dumbest trades I've ever seen. So still, I mean, if we were going with the quarterbacks that are currently in this division without any trades, any moves being made, and Aaron Rodgers coming back to Green Bay, obviously I would put it, maybe this is just me drinking the blue Kool-Aid, but of course I'm taking Aaron Rodgers first, Jared Goff second, Kirk Cousins third, and then Mitch as the final quarterback in this division. But I mean, it's really honest. I mean, gosh, we're still a little bit away from the draft, so there's always all these moving parts, and even the four-letter networks calling this offseason the quarterback carousel. Everybody's just waiting for everything to fall, and the first one to move obviously was Stafford, and there's still all that big rumor that that Houston can move on from Watson, even though Houston's like, we're not trading him at all. Well, everybody's tradable as long as you get the right deal for it. So they're obviously not dumb. Houston's not that dumb to turn down something, but well, they've made bad trades in the past too. DeAndre Hopkins. I still think they're wondering about that there in Houston. But we're just hoping Goff comes here and kind of balls out, kind of goes back to leading them to the playoffs, and it's gonna be tough. I mean, that's why they have to go get another wide receiver. Like you said, either they're going to franchise, like I mentioned before, they're going to franchise Kenny Golladay, or they're going to have to go sign a free agent and draft one, in the first couple rounds. But there's a little bit of a talent gap here, but I think Goff could be okay. I don't believe he's the guy like Matt Stafford that can make any wide receiver, throw up good stats with any wide receivers. I mean, yeah, we always talk about how we had Nate Burleson and Calvin Johnson, and we had Marvin Jones later and Kenny Golladay, but hey, we all remember those games where his number one wide receiver was Chris Durham. I mean, and everybody's gonna be like, who? Exactly, Chris Durham. So even though they were roommates in college and they were friends and you kind of knew them, but still, I mean, Chris Durham obviously wasn't a pro wide receiver. There's plenty of times where Matt Stafford has had like nobody to throw the ball to. So Jared Goff, I don't think he's that guy that's making a whole lot of wide receivers better. I think he's a guy that needs talent around him for him to succeed. So the Lions can't come into next year with a really lackluster wide receiver core, hoping that DeAndre Swift can just carry the load, be like one of those old workhorse running backs. And the last one I can really remember is Adrian Peterson. I mean, some people might say Zeke Elliott down in Dallas, but even Dalvin Cook up in Minnesota. But I don't think DeAndre Swift's as good as those guys at this point. So they need another running back there, and that offensive line, they need a right side. So Jared Goff, I mean, he's still probably the second best quarterback in this division, in my humble opinion. I mean, if you feel different, hit me up on Twitter. I'd be fine with that. Once again, I'm at GrifkaDKC. Or, you can find Derek at Derek Oakrey. He'd be more than happy to put his opinion in there as well. But there's still a lot of moving parts on this team. Still a little bit to go before we kind of know what this is going to be on the field. And like I mentioned on a previous episode, Dan Campbell said, trust in the process. But they're going to ride Jared Goff at least for the next couple years. I'm a firm believer in that. I don't see him taking a quarterback high, in this year's draft. Maybe next year, depending on what Jared Goff does this year. But as we mentioned, Brad Holmes likes him. Brad Holmes scouted him. We brought him here for a reason. He wasn't just a throw-in, as everybody says. So they're going to ride him this year, and they're going to look to build this team other places. So Jared Goff, be the second best quarterback in this division. We would love to see it. So it's been a pretty interesting offseason so far, and we still have a long way to go before any off-season workouts, any obviously training camps. But there's always news coming out of Detroit, it seems, this time of year, and we're pretty excited for the offseason. So well, that's all I got for today. I do appreciate you guys listening, and once again, it's Friday. Everybody stay warm, stay safe. Hopefully, if you had the chance to get the vaccine, congratulations. I know still a lot of people are waiting for it. But I appreciate you all listening. So everybody, have a good weekend. And as always, drink it in, man.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.